Now it's time to start the first forum for trustee area 5, which is our last forum of the day, but the first forum for this trustee area. We have 2 members of the League of Women Voters who will be asking the questions. Myrtle Braxton, can you wave your hand, Myrtle? There she is. And we are very fortunate today to have the president of the West County League of Women Voters, Cheryl Collier, asking questions. Cheryl? Okay. The candidates are Tom Panis, Leslie Reckler, and Carolyn Weisinger. Okay. I want the attendees to pay very close attention to the candidates' answers, because on November 3rd, you will vote for another first. You will elect the first West Contra Costa Unified School District Board of Trustee for Area 5. I have a couple of things some housekeeping things to do before we start. I want to let everybody know that this webinar is being videotaped and will be shown on the district Facebook page. It will be shown on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. It will also be on the district's website. And the webinar is being translated in Spanish. So if you need to have a translation at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see where you can click on for translation in Spanish. There will be no open questions on the chat. When we publicized this forum, we did say that the questions should be given to us in advance. We received a lot of questions, and we met the League of Women Voters on Friday, and we selected 10 questions, which we thought covered a lot of the areas, which we're going to give to you in a few minutes. So we will not be accepting any questions on the chat. I think that's it for me for right now. So right now, I'm going to turn the form over to our 2 League women who are going to ask the questions. And our web form starts now.
Thank you, Linda. I'll start with question 1. And Tom, the question is, how will you address the budget issue?
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Oh, we're supposed to have an opening statement?
Right, opening statement first.
Oh, I am so sorry. Yes.
I can just go ahead with that if you want.
Have you? Yeah, since you're up, Tom, why don't you start the opening statement? Okay.
Certainly, thank you.
The next one for a statement, an introduction.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Panis, and I'm a member of the school board. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for attending today, and also the League of Women Voters in the district for putting on today's forum. Hola, muy buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Tom Panis y soy miembro de la mesa directiva. Me gustaría comenzar agradeciendo a todos ustedes por asistir hoy y también agradecer a la Liga de Mujeres Votantes y nuestro distro por organizar esta sesión. I came to El Cerrito when I attended Cal, and I've lived here for more than 45 years. I met and married my wife, Ann, here. As many of you know, both of my sons are on the spectrum and went through our district schools K-12. Mike went to 11 different schools, and Alan went to 12. Now that I'm on the school board, this is literally my full-time job, 50 to 60 hours a week. I spend thousands of hours in schools, meaning I've experienced the history and the ins and outs of our district for more than 30 years. Whether I'm advocating for special education families, our LGBTQ community, our African-American community, I'm a parent who can speak from experience for all those 30 plus years. I'm a big fan of our hardworking teachers, and I was instrumental in giving our teachers the raise they deserved, making them some of the best paid teachers in the county. And I've been endorsed by the West County Teachers of the Year for the last 4 years. I'm also endorsed by California Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, California State Senator Steve Glazer, retired Member of Congress George Miller, and student trustees for the last 4 years. My website has testimonials from the highest performing principals in the district. I am proud and humbled to have received these, and they say more about me, what I stand for, what I believe in for our schools, and how I govern than anything I could ever say here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to Leslie in order to make her 2-minute opening statement, please.
Hello to everyone, and thank you to the League for hosting this forum. You guys are doing a great job. I know how hard this is, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Leslie Reckler. I'm a parent with children enrolled in and graduated from our local public schools. I'm running because I want to ensure that parent voice is better represented on our school board. Our schools are suffering from a deep financial crisis, and due to COVID-19, our traditional ways of learning and our community connections have been completely disrupted in this unprecedented time. And yet, we only have one school board member on our board now that has children enrolled in our own local public schools. Parent voice needs to be better reflected in the decisions that our school board makes so that our students, families, and schools are better supported. For 14 years, I've worked hard across this district and I'm with my sleeves rolled up, fighting for students and families, and I have a proven track record of real results. Some of my major accomplishments are work on 10 school funding measures, winning over $2 billion for our schools across this district. Most recently, I worked on and was the argument signer on Measure R because I believe that every child, regardless of neighborhood or zip code, should have a safe, clean, modern facility in which to learn. I was a member of the team that researched, wrote, and edited WCCUSD School Board Resolution 491718, Establishment of a Positive School Climate Policy to eliminate willful defiance suspensions and take steps to improve our school culture and climate. I was on the Hewlett grant writing team, winning $1.2 million to improve our teaching and learning practices. As a council PTA president with responsibility of over 30 PTAs, I brought hundreds of parents to the decision-making table, which allowed them to advocate for their students and their schools. I'm a mentor to Richmond Promise UC Junior. I love that work. I also have a broad business background and 20 years of experience managing budgets valued to $100 million. Recently, I gave that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to be rude, but you went past your time.
That's okay. I'll just keep going until you stop me.
Okay. Next, we have Carolyn to give her 2-minute statement, please.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to West Contra Costa Unified, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me. My name is Carolyn Weisinger, and I am running for WCCUSD trustee in Area 5. I'm running because I want to move this district from equality to equity, and that is a very important distinction. I have the unique experience of seeing the successes and the challenges of this district from end to end. That's as a student, a classified worker, and as a teacher. When elected in November, I really will be championing our district, focusing on reimagining all of our schools as 21st century schools. So that means focusing on fiscal oversight. That means that not only just making budget cuts, but making sure that we're making mindful budget cuts so that we are not affecting student learning. That's student safety. We're going into a time where we've decided not to have our SROs on campus. We need to talk about what that looks like and what does safety look like from the perspective of our Black and Brown students and from our Latinx and newcomer students. Educational innovation. We need to talk about the digital divide that was created long before COVID ever got here. We also need to talk about creating new career and college pathways. So talking about our HBCU PAC and our relationship with CTE and labor unions. And finally, COVID response. Our COVID response has revealed so much about our district that we really need to reimagine and look for going into the future. It's not about reopening schools. It's about looking about what our education will look for into the future. Thank you so much again for having me, and I look forward to speaking with you all.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to our questions. And our first question, I'd like to start with Leslie.
Okay, Cheryl, I'm going to stop for 1 minute. The candidates, when you're not on, turn your mic to mute, because if you move around or you talk, you'll pop on the screen. So, because while Carolyn Weisinger was talking, Tom Panis popped up on the screen because you're moving around and the noise was picked up. Okay, so mute until it's your turn to come on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie, your question is, how will you address the budget issue?
So we have enough problems caused by the state and the way it funds public education. So, our own issues have led to the constant shuffling and laying off of teachers and staff. It's beyond disruptive. I have 20 years of managing budgets valued to $100 million, so I do come to this with a background in how to do this. So everybody listening to me, there's a few things you can do to help us. The first thing is that you vote yes on Prop 15. That might give us $18 million a year. Second is you take the census. Third, you call your state reps and you ask for the passage of SB 956. Then, we don't have a lot of easy fixes here. These are my ideas. We have properties that are potentially revenue producing. Those need to be explored. Our board shut down those discussions. We increase our enrollment and attendance with new programs where kids and parents want to send their schools. We fight for more accessible budget presentations. What is coming to the public is far too detailed and is not geared to the general public to establish trust. And we're probably going to have to make cuts. We do that collaboratively together. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to Tom. And the same question, how will you address the budget issue?
Thank you. So the budget for fiscal year 21-22 should be created in partnership with the community as a new document focused on students. Budget development should start from scratch, adding back the programming, staffing, and materials that have been proven to directly increase student achievement versus simply rolling forward existing programs. Obviously, with our learning continuity plan, we have a chance to impact the entire budget situation there. I'm a retired CPA and chief financial officer. And if you watch board meetings, you'll note that I'm often pointing out errors in accounting and bookkeeping that appear in the board materials, payroll reports that don't add up, careless 4 million errors in our revenue projections, cash flows that don't make sense. So we need to do a better job of holding the staff accountable. And for that reason, I've requested, we're receiving cash flow reports and position control reports. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move to Carolyn. Question 1, how will you address the budget issue?
Thank you so much. Well, the first thing that we would need to do to address the budget issue is to address how we got here. And we got here through mismanagement of the district. And that's been admittedly in their presentations on the budget. And so what we would first need to do is actually shuffle our priorities. What is it that we're thinking of that's important? One of the things that have been the conversation in the community is getting rid of our SROs and safety. So we know that, just for instance, WCCUSD spent $1.5 million on our SROs. We also spent $15 million over our projected budget on bringing in administrators to police our Black and brown students. If we're saying that we're moving from being a police state and an education organization that teaches kids to be policed, we need to look at that. And those are the type of budget decisions that we need to make. We need to know what our priorities are, and then we need to either make cuts or add in funds from that point. But we can't do that until we know what the priorities of this district are.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to question 2, and I'll start with Tom. How will you address the issue around equity?
So equity is a huge issue in our district, and one of my top priorities, absolutely, I shouldn't know one. My top priority is making this a completely anti-racist school district. We need to fight against racism and all the injustices that is fostered in our community. That's one reason why I'm so happy with the equity work that we're now doing on Fridays in our schools. But equity goes a lot further than that. In our facilities master plan, I have advocated for equity, and I've advocated that we have more students and more parents on our prioritization committee. I've proposed to the governance committee, and we're moving forward on developing a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And also I'm proposing that in the same way that we have a fiscal impact for every budget item, we have an equity impact for every budget item. I've also gone through restorative trauma-informed practices and positive behavioral intervention support practices for 3 weeks to better foster equity. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Next, we'll go to Leslie. And how will you address the issue around equity?
So equity is a verb, equity is action, and I realize that I have benefited greatly from a white supremacist system, and I realize this, and I address it every day. I've realized a long time ago that white parents had a lot of benefits and were entitled to a lot of things, that other parents weren't. And at that time, I rolled up my sleeves and I got to work making sure that I could even the playing field and make it equitable for all parents. And I've done this work for years. Through PTA, I brought parents to the table and I've taught them how to fight for their schools and their students for the programs that they want. I've taught them how to speak at board meetings. I've taught them how to write letters. I work on the DLCAPS committee. Very serious work about raising parent voice for the decisions that they want. I come to this work as a learner. I have a lot to learn. I try to be the quietest voice in the room, and sometimes I apologize that I cannot hold back, but I do it with love, and the work has been meaningful to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move. Oh, I've lost my place. Okay. Is it Carolyn that will answer the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, so your question is the same on equity, I believe. How will you address the issue around equity?
The very first way that I will address the issue around equity is by doing what I'm doing right now, which is running for this position. And this is what we say when we talk about being ahistorical about the history of West Contra Costa, formerly Richmond Unified School District, and the ward that's now known as Ward 5. We know we need to do a better job of bringing our Black and brown people to the table. It's very disturbing to me that there have been Black and brown teachers such as myself who have been talking about race and equity for years in West Contra Costa. I'll even say before I was a teacher as a student. And we just now are having board members who are learning what it is to be anti-racist. It's not enough to just be learning what anti-racism is right now. You have to already know what it is and know how to actually take critical race theory and wrap it around every type of policy that you are making for each and every student in our district. So that's how we'll do it. We're going to bring that critical race theory. We're going to bring those equity theories and we're going to wrap it around all of our policy. But we do need to do that by bringing more Black and brown people to the table.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to question 3, and we're going to start with Carolyn. What do you feel have been the issues around distance learning?
So the issues around distance learning, that's so broad. And, I had the opportunity to sit with my niece and nephew as they were doing their distance learning and learning a lot about what our young students are facing, as well as our adult, or rather our high school students. Our high schoolers, we're facing a situation where a lot of our teachers were not as up to par with our technology as we as a district were saying that we were making sure that we were. We're facing a situation where we as a district were saying that we had a 1-to-1 ratio of our laptops, and we did, but those laptops were completely ineffective. Those of us who were working in the district knew that. This is something that needs to be addressed. That's the very first thing that needs to be addressed. Then we need to address the way that what the expectations that we have of our teachers for our distance learning. And we need to be honest about the fact that we are a district who is not just facing COVID, but we face environmental emergencies all the time. We need a plan. When there's a fire that springs up that takes us out of the classroom, we need a plan. We were not prepared for this, and that is the overriding problem with social distancing right now.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to Leslie. What do you feel have been the issues around distance learning?
So thank you. I was on the school reopening task force, and as a parent, along with other parents, we elevated a number of concerns, and we're actually very glad many of these things are in the plan. Cutting down on the number of platforms, built-in SEL, built-in supports for students, built-in teacher training, built-in parent training to get them on the systems. So we're very happy with the framework that was laid out. And now, as I spoke about on Wednesday night's meeting, this is now all about continuing cycles of improvement, both at the site level and at the district level, to improve the practice right away. So what we've asked the district to do is, how are you going to do it? On what timetable? In what formats can information come back to you? And how are you going to nimbly make improvements to the system? So that's where we are right now. We just rolled it out. We're just in like our 4th week of school, but we are expecting to see improvements and change going forward.
Oh, thank you. Okay, now it's your turn, Tom. What do you feel have been the issues around distance learning?
So thank you very much. So distance learning is new and it is very challenging. I've talked to many teachers about this and they're frustrated in many ways, but even last spring when we went through the first round of distance learning, teachers were discovering new ways that they could do things that they intend to bring into their classrooms once we get back to a non-COVID mode. At the same time, this has become a huge equity issue. You know, we discovered last spring that one-on-one did not actually mean one-on-one because we weren't one-on-one in our kindergartens and in our first grade classes. And so we had to very quickly move to address that issue. There's also a huge equity issue with access, you know, via the internet. We worked hard on that. We're continuing to work on it. But like even now, if you're in a house with 4 kids, does each kid have a private space to work? Does each kid have the ability to do all their work, or is bandwidth constrained into the house? So we need to work together to make sure we have the right hardware, both internet connectivity and computers in our kids' hands.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to question 4 and take a deep breath, Tom. You're up next. What is your position regarding campus security?
Okay, campus security. Thank you. So campus security involves both SROs and CSOs, and we actually made a decision at the board recently to remove SROs from our campuses. I actually voted in 2017 when this came up before that we needed to remove all armed police from our campus. And I stand very strongly behind that decision. And I was thrilled when it came back up just a few meetings ago and we were able to move forward on this. But just removing the SROs is one thing. We need a safety plan in place. We've been pushing the district to give us a safety plan. COVID has blessed us a little bit there in terms of like we have more time to create that safety plan. But we also need to make sure we're taking that money that we saved on SROs and we need to be investing it in more counseling and mental health services for our kids. We need to use it to enhance our full service community schools. And, you know, safety is a feeling on campus. And I think having the SROs gone, particularly for our undocumented and other students, has been great. But I stood behind the SRO decision.
Thank you. Leslie?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You don't have to repeat it. So everyone wants to feel safe on campus. There's absolutely no question about that. Students, parents, teachers, if people don't feel emotionally and physically safe, learning is impeded. So what we do now is we need to do a couple of things. I think we need a couple of task forces. So we should develop a district-wide task force. We have a lot of talent in this district that knows how to do it. We comprise a team of CSOs, we've got counselors, we've got students, and we form an initial framework for the entire district that outlines all the needs. And then we form campus teams because every school is not going to look the same as to what safety looks like on that campus. And we have each of those sites devise a plan, and we ensure that the resources are available so that they can enact those plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Carolyn. Same question. What is your position regarding campus security?
Well, first, regarding my position on campus security, the day that I knew that I was no longer going to be teaching was the day that one of my students was arrested on campus by our SROs. And we need to be very honest about these sort of things. And a lot of times when you talk to members of our community, they're members like me who've been in our community for over 40 years, who went to West Contra Costa Unified School District schools, and they have a cognitive dissonance because they don't understand when you say campus security. They don't understand the difference between SROs and CSOs. What we remember was the old school Richmond Unified School District police officers who were more like our SRO, our CSOs now. So my position is that I definitely stand behind the students, the amazing students who ended the contract with the SROs. We do need to really focus on reducing. We need to work on preventative versus intervention. So we need to work on reducing the amount of exposure that students would have had to what are now SROs, but we need to also focus on interventions. What are the things that are causing students to have these issues? So we need to work on both of those things.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move to Tom this time. And the question would be, what should be the new priorities for Measure R funding regarding our facilities and master plan?
So thank you very much. We have a facilities master plan with a clear set of priorities laid out. We have about $1 billion, I think it's $1.1 billion in projects to do, and we have about $600 million that we can spend on that. So the board has actually authorized that we update the facilities master plan, and we're starting that process right now. We need to do this completely with equity. You know, I pushed to make sure that all new construction is air conditioned, which is something I've never been part of the district plan before. And that's, to me, that's a huge equity issue because we had so many flatland schools that became unbearable at warmer times of the year. I've also pushed to make sure that people can self-nominate to the prioritization committee because I feel like we need to get more than just district recommended people. But more importantly, we have to make sure that we address the needs of all our flatland schools, Richmond High, Kennedy High, Lake. Many of our schools have been promised improvements.
Thank you. We're going to move to Leslie, and it is the same question. Would you like me to read it again?
No, I think I'm good with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I very much supported Measure R. I was an argument signer on Measure R. Mr. Panis did not vote to support Measure R. Measure R meant the world to me because I believe that every child in this district, regardless of their neighborhood or their zip code, deserves a safe, clean, modern facility in which to learn. I myself work at Kennedy High School, and I couldn't go in there one more day and work there and know that those kids were in that school. So I was very much in favor of Measure R. The master plan is about 5 years old. It does need to be reevaluated and reprioritized. We absolutely must put an equity lens on the work that's done there in terms of the prioritization. I am looking for critical needs first. I don't want buildings falling down on kids. And then I want kids in beautiful facilities where they feel safe and comfortable and valued. That's the work I intend to do on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Carolyn. Same question. You need me to repeat it?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much. You know, the priority for the Measure R Fund has to be rebuilding Kennedy and Richmond High. And I'm going to just tell you a short story. When I was teaching at Richmond High School, we had a electrical glitch, which sometimes happens with large buildings. PG&E came out to get it back up. They got it back up. It went back down. We were out of our classrooms for about 3 to 4 days because they could not get the electricity at Richmond High up. Basically, it came down to the building is old. I mean, as I've said, my family is from Richmond. My mom was the first high school senior class at Kennedy High School. My mom graduated in 1968, okay? It's not okay, and I'm running in Ward 5. It's not okay that we have made sure that El Cerrito, De Anza, Pinole Valley, coincidentally, the schools that are not our Title I schools have made sure to get their retrofit in their new buildings, and Kennedy High and Richmond High have not. And we have to make sure if we're saying that we're prioritizing our school, our students, and our low-income communities, those buildings come under that. That has to be the priority.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to question 6, and I'll start with Leslie. What program or resources do you think the district can put in place to handle social emotional learning?
So healthy school cultures and helping our students develop skills and manage their emotions and resolve conflicts and make responsible decisions. This is paramount to learning. It's all about forming great relationships with students and great trust and having great campus environments. Some of the things that I really believe in are trauma-informed practices and understanding how trauma affects students. Every single one of us has trauma right now. I mean, parents could use the trauma-informed practices as well, but to make sure that everybody knows about that. It's also about creating senses of belonging, teachers training to create belonging, training our students about belonging, and making people feel part of the school and the campus. This can be done in a number of different ways through advisories, support systems, also community schools, health centers, counselor networks, small peer groups are all ways that we can help with SEL. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to Tom for this question. Would you like me to repeat it?
So thank you very much. So first of all, if we're talking literally about programs, then all programs need to be CASEL certified. That's the organization that certifies social emotional learning programs. And so that's very important. Positive behavior, PBIS, positive behavioral intervention supports are crucially important in our district. We've implemented those in a few schools. And the idea is we're reforming our system of justice from punitive to being restorative and non-punitive. And I've actually been to 2 one-week sessions on PBIS, and those were very worthwhile times. I also think that restorative and trauma-informed practices are key to proper social emotional learning in our school district. And I actually went to a one-week training that we did with Millie Burns on restorative and trauma-informed practices. We need to make sure we're including student voice in everything we do in terms of social emotional learning. And we need to make sure that we have enough school psychologists and counselors to support our students.
Thank you. Okay, Carolyn, question number 6 for you as well. I can repeat it if I need to.
Yes, can you repeat it for me right quick, please?
I'd be happy to. What programs or resources do you think the district can put in place to handle social emotional learning?
The best part about West Contra Costa Unified School District is that everything that we have that we need to support social and emotional learning, we have. We're just not using it effectively at all. Going back to the question about our SROs and securities on campus, we need to be making better use of our restorative justice folks that are on campus. We have teachers that are trained in restorative justice. We also have great organizations such as Catholic Charities that are used on our campus, but we don't use them enough. We use them usually at the very last minute. I'm very proud to have been in the very first cohort of what was called our conflict managers at El Cerrito High School. I think they have a new name now. That was back in 1995. They are still around there at El Cerrito High School. That's something that we need to start bringing to the rest of our campuses. We need to make sure that we're investing in our arts education. We need to make sure that we are taking our community schools and effectively using them across our campuses. At Richmond High School, the community school model was used very well between our health services and between the counselors on campus. So like I said, we have all these tools. We have the social emotional things that we need, but we need to make sure as a board that our sites are actually implementing all of those.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Braxton?
Unmute. Thank you very much. I'm going to start out with question number 7. And I'm asking Tom this question first. How should the school district address the issue of co-locations with charter schools?
So thank you. The charter schools are here to stay. And I think we need to think really hard about how we can be good neighbors with them. It's very difficult to have 2 schools located at the same site. At the same time, we should all be dedicated to making sure all kids get a great education. And I'm actually thinking that we should have, for example, site councils that include principal and students from both schools to be meeting frequently to discuss issues that are going on. I think we just need to have a good neighbor policy regarding this. I'm hoping we don't have to do any more co-locations, but if that comes to the board, that comes to the board, and board members need to make tough decisions. Keep in mind that we're probably not going to have any new charter schools because of AB 1505, but I think that a good neighbor policy and let's get along, site councils are the way to go about this.
Thank you. Same question to Carolyn. How should the district address the issue of co-locations with charter schools?
You're muted, Carolyn.
Thank you, Tom. I've had the experience of working in co-located schools, both in West Contra Costa as well as in LA Unified School District. So I've seen both the successes and challenges on both ends. And I think the way I would actually agree with Trustee Penn is on the fact that we do need to actually have a better relationship between the charters and the WCCUSD schools. I have seen, unfortunately, where we have our schools where we are limited on desks. We're limited on rooms. We need to have a better system in place as to how we determine who gets what. And if it comes to the board will have to make those tough decisions as to making sure that our students are the priority. But of course, we are dealing with a moratorium because of the AB 1505. But if that does become the case, we do need to have better communication, but we do need to be able to make those tough decisions and advocate for our kids on those campuses.
Thank you. Leslie, same question. How should the district address the issue of co-locations with charter schools?
Thank you. This is an extremely problematic issue and one that we are living right now. Charters get in the fast lane at the expense of our own public schools. And right now at Crespi Middle School, we've had a lot of conversations about moving all of their facilities around to grow, a charter school. This is the law. We need to be responsible and adhere to the law, but it doesn't make it easy. At this point, we really only have a good neighbor policy, and that is what we do need to do and encourage both parties on that campus to work as collaboratively as possible together. But as a board and as your own person, you can advocate. And now that they've fixed a few things with 1505 and the other laws that just came along, the time is now to ask that Prop 39 be addressed and that our legislators put together a set of laws that allow better coexistence. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go to Carolyn. How will you address the digital divide in our district?
Thank you. I think the digital divide will be addressed in our district by actually leveraging district partnerships. I was a student in West Contra Costa, which was in Richmond Unified the very last time that the district was in financial straits such as it is now. And it was actually leveraging partnership that helped get us out of that hole then. And it will be the same thing with our digital divide now. I am currently the president of the largest LGBT pride celebration in the world, a San Francisco Pride. And in that position, I have been able to build a lot of relationships with organizations such as Google, such as Facebook, such as YouTube, who are ready and waiting to support districts such as West Contra Costa in their digital divide issues. So that will be helping us get new technology, new laptops, helping us actually get better app services, helping us build technology, build services that our teachers can actually use, and actually get more training for our teachers, because some of our teachers do need more training on how they can actually boost their technology in their classroom. So it's really going to be partnerships and relationships. And that's what I would actually bring to the board.
Thank you. Leslie, same question.
So
I'm sorry. How will you address the digital divide in our district?
So we definitely have a digital divide, and I want to give a huge shout out to our tech team, Tracy Logan, who has done incredible work trying to bridge this over. So every child in our district does have a tablet. Where we are falling short is on the actual bandwidth, Wi-Fi. And I wrote a grant to the National PTA for $15,000 that we could donate to our school system to improve and get hotspots for our students. We didn't win it, but I realized how serious it was. The district is looking at buying its own network for like $5 or $6 million. They did have one presentation at the board. There were 3 different options that were presented. I highly support this effort, and I look forward to that presentation being brought back to the board, which would supply more of our students high quality broadband. And then everybody who's on this call, everyone who's listening, get on the advocacy train and write to Gavin Newsom, write to your state legislators and tell them we need free broadband for every student. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, same question. How will you address the digital divide in our district?
Thank you. So the digital divide does not just exist in our district. It's a national and an international program, and it's just been made a whole lot worse by the COVID crisis. It certainly is an equity issue, and we need to be very focused on it. Our IT department, as Leslie said, has just like done an incredible job. They have worked so hard to get hotspots and find grants to buy hotspots and to add PCs and laptops to our inventory. So we're ready to do swap in, swap out replacement. That's very important. But, still at the home, there's just a lot of people, even with a hotspot that we provide. If you've got 3 or 4 people in a home, do the kids all have a separate space where they can work? Is there enough bandwidth to support them all? It's a huge problem. We did bring to the board a discussion about creating our own network, and that'll be helpful. Also, we've got fiber strung all over the district, and we could also perhaps look for a grant to provide hotspots at selected places around the district. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be for Tom. You're the first one. What is your position regarding approving more charter schools in our district?
Okay, thank you. So as I just mentioned, like AB 1505 means that we're not going to be approving any new charter schools within the next 2 to 4 years because there's limitations on financial impact. But in general, I have been doing what I was sworn in to do, which is follow the law. While I've been on the board, 5 new applications have come in for charter schools, and I have opposed 2 and supported 3. And of those 3 that I supported, 2 actually became charter schools. So I wasn't the only voice advocating for those. As a special ed parent, my sons both, it's not part of me to take away the right of any parent to choose the school where they want to go. My primary goal on the board is to ensure that all of our students are able to go to high achieving schools, and that one day every parent will be thrilled to send their child to their neighborhood school, that child will get a great education, an equitable education, and they'll be A to G eligible when they leave school. I also want to say I fully support the charter school laws that have passed AB 1505, 1507, SB 75, and SB 126.
Thank you. Carolyn, same question. What is your position regarding approving more charter schools in our district? Carolyn.
Did y'all see me throw a tantrum? I'm sorry. I fully support the moratorium that the district placed on charter schools in our district. And of course, because of the AB laws that have been handed down, we won't be approving any soon. But I want to be very clear. We need to have better conversations about the difference between the for-profit charter schools that have been coming into WCCUSD versus the grassroots schools. And anyone who says that you can make any charter decisions without actually having that conversation, without those nuanced stories about the Oakland Community School, about the Marva Collins School, they don't know a thing about Black education and Black liberation. Half of the things that we've discussed on this call, things like free lunch, things like free breakfast, things like the social emotional learning, all of those things came from the Oakland Community School. And in the words of Erica Hudgens from the Black Panther Party, who was one of the founders, she said they created the Oakland Community School not to be in competition with the public schools, but to be a template for what a school could be with more empathy to this child. So we need to have those nuanced conversations and talk about what we are not doing as a district.
Thank you. This is our last question, and Leslie, you're going to have that question too. So don't mute. Okay. The West County Mandarin School serves students from across the district. The school has outgrown its current site at the Sierra campus in Richmond and is slated to move to the temporary portable campus at Portola in El Cerrito. Families have requested that we move instead to the abandoned Adams, which is blocks away from Sierra, and put portables there. Would you support the financial investment to have the school move to Adams? Why or why not?
Ma'am, I don't believe I answered the charter school question. Would you like me to answer the Mandarin school question first or go back to the charter school question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'll go with the charter school question. So I also agree that under 1505, I don't think that anything is going to come to the board as a new charter petition anytime soon. The one thing I do want to do is correct Mr. Panis's record. He talks about his new charter schools, but he should be asked how many renewals he voted for, and it's more than a handful. So I'd like to point that out. I'm actually quite disappointed in this board because the reason why all these parents have gone to charter schools is because the board has not put their foot down and listened to parents and students, providing new and exciting programs that kids want to come and parents want to come to this district and come to our schools. As a matter of fact, we have more kids now being educated in West County than ever before, but they're not in our schools. They're in different programs, and that shows that we haven't met the need. So now we have to go back and figure out what those parents want. And we know it's about safety, it's about rigor, and it's about programs. And as a board member, I am going to be asking questions about how we get those families back. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize, Leslie. Now start her time over because she's up first for the West County Mandarin School question. You want me to read it again?
No, I'm okay on it. And I also want to say that I really appreciate you. And I do a lot of these too. And it's a lot to keep manage. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
So for the Mandarin School, I want to do a little bit more learning on this, but I am not in favor of putting this on the Portola campus. When the Mandarin School was first formed and it came to the board, I see this as an equity issue. And here we go, putting a great gem in my backyard, right at the bottom of my hill, where all of my neighbors in a well-resourced part of the district have another great option. And honestly, I'm not in favor of that. Can you imagine being a parent from Pinole driving down 80 every day to drop your kid off at the Mandarin School? I'm not in favor of it. The population right now comes from all over the district. I'm very sure these are people that would have gone charter or would have gone private or would have picked another option if the Mandarin School had not been there. It draws from all over the district, and I'm very much in favor of having it have a central location where all families have access. They're also out of time. They need to make a decision quickly. They're out of space. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to you, Tom. The West County Mandarin School serves students from across the district. The school has outgrown its current site at the Sierra campus in Richmond and is slated to move to the temporary portable campus at Portola in El Cerrito. Families have requested that we move instead to the abandoned Adams, which is blocks away from Sierra, and put portables there. Would you support the financial investment to have the school move to Adams? Why or why not?
Well, thank you. So this came to the board in July, and the board made a very clear statement, and I was part of that statement, that we were not going to move the school. The Adams site is seismically questionable at best. In theory, we could put portables there. But I see this as a big equity issue because we have $1.1 billion in school needs, at least for construction, and we only have $600 million to do it. And there are many people at Kennedy High, Richmond High, Lake, many schools across the district that have been waiting many, many, many years, 10, 15 years to get their schools rebuilt. And I would love to have a wonderful school for the Mandarin School, wonderful site. But I think that the Portola site will fit them just fine. I'd also just like to thank Ms. Reckler for pointing out that I've approved several schools. I've also voted to close 3 charter schools while I was on the board.
Thank you. This last question is going to Carolyn. The West County Mandarin School serves students from across the district. The school has outgrown its current site at the Sierra campus in Richmond and is slated to move to the temporary portable campus in Portola in El Cerrito. Families have requested that we move instead to the abandoned Adams, which is blocks away from Sierra, and put portables there. Would you support the financial investment to have the school move to Adams? Why or why not?
Thank you so much. And we definitely need a great campus for our Mandarin School. I do not support it moving to the Adams site because I do not support the $11 million it would take to seismically retrofit the site, especially as we've gone back to the last question about replacing Kennedy and Richmond High. Those need to be our money priorities when it comes to buildings, to the point of parents having to come to the Adams site. I live right on top of actually both Portola and Adams. And actually, Adams is more accessible than the Portland site. We have to remember that Portland site is actually across the street from another private school. So those of us who literally live on this hill would be in a nightmare every day. But that's not a problem. I'm not considered in this, but I think that it would be more accessible for people to go to the Adams campus, and I don't support using the funds that it would take to actually fix it. I think that the Portland site would be suitable at this time.
Thank you all for answering questions. I now turn it back to our leader.
Okay. I'm going to give everyone a chance to do their closing summary. And I'm going to go in the order of my list on my little notes here. And so I have Tom Panis first for his summary. And then we'll have Leslie Reckler, and we'll end with Carolyn Weisinger. So Tom, you're first.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the league and the district very much for putting this on. Because they can see I'm here for kids, I've been endorsed by State Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, State Senator Steve Glazer, and our legendary retired Congressman George Miller. But to me, the most telling information on whether I've been a great school board member is the amazing testimonials that I've received from student school board members for the last 4 years, teachers of the year for the last 4 years, many high-performing principals throughout the district. One additional endorsement that means so much to me was given to me by a person who, in search of a better life, took a journey that many of our families have taken. She immigrated to the United States with her parents from Mexico without documentation when she was about to enter the 5th grade. She wrote this about me. Tom Panis is a relentless educational advocate who fights for kids and families across West Contra Costa. In his capacity as board president and board member, Tom has clearly defined the focus of his public service to make fully informed and responsible decisions that will lead to opportunities and outcomes for every child in our district so that they can succeed in life. He prioritizes creating systems and procedures that stabilize and sustain financial health of the district, communicating frequently with multiple stakeholders and learners, serving in schools and district committees, and taking the initiative to learn and be an ally in the continuous work of racial, social, educational, and linguistic equity. As a parent, active community member, and school board leader, Tom is fully equipped to continue building partnerships with families and fighting to improve the educational experiences for children in West Contra Costa. So that was written by Stephanie Hernandez Jarvis, who is now a talented bilingual kindergarten class teacher, serving students who share her story. She is incredibly brilliant and unbelievably equity focused. She has demonstrated tremendous empathy in her role as president of our school board. To be endorsed by her should be everyone's dream, and I am totally humbled that with her life story, she would say this about me. I humbly ask for your vote. Thanks so much y muchas gracias a todos.
Okay, Leslie, you're next. Thank you, Tom.
So I'd very much like to thank the league for this opportunity, and I thank the moderators and the district staff for a great forum. I also would like to thank the other candidates, all the other candidates, for their participation and for running. We know this is not easy, but we do it for our kids and their futures and for the betterment of all of our communities. This district is at a point of great inflection. Budget, distance learning, communities isolated, overwhelming trauma. As a parent with children enrolled in our district schools, no one can fight for our needs better, and the voices of parents with enrolled children have been underrepresented on this board for years. What happens here really matters to me. These are my kids. These are my kids' friends, my neighbors. I spent my 14 years with my sleeves rolled up working for families across this district, and I've got real track record of results in funding, in advocacy, in programs, in new ways of doing business in the WCCUSD. So you have a choice right now. Do we like the last 4 years? Do we choose to repeat it? Or do we want fresh, new, experienced leadership, a known, full-throated advocate, an out-of-the-box thinker that's going to challenge us every day to think differently about what we are doing and how we get there? I am endorsed by a broad local coalition that knows our schools best. Janet Abelson and Rochelle Pardue-Okimoto of the El Cerrito City Council, Tom Butt, Mayor of Richmond, Gail McLaughlin, former Richmond mayor, current candidate for the Richmond City Council, Melvin Willis, Eduardo Martinez from the Richmond City Council, Trustee Consuelo Lara, Madeline Cronenberg, former trustee, Todd Groves, former trustee, Annette Lewis and Sarah Butler, Contra Costa County Office of Education, the United Teachers of Richmond has endorsed me, Teamsters 856, Contra Costa County Building and Construction Trades and Labor Coalition, hundreds of parents, students, community members, and teachers that know my work in community. Visit my website, leslie4wccusd.com. I think the choice is clear in November. Vote for me. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Leslie. And last, of course, but not least, we have Carolyn. Carolyn?
Tom didn't tell me this time. No, I'm just playing. Thank you. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having me. And thank you to all the candidates and for everyone who's here. I'm so excited about this opportunity to represent WCCUSD. We're at a time in 2020 where so many of our institutions are almost essentially crumbling around us, which is a great thing because we get to remake all of our institutions. And Devin Carballo, the professor of critical race theory, said, it's important that you take stock into making good choices of the people who are giving you the choices that you get to make. So this is an opportunity where we get to make new and bold decisions. We don't have time to wait for individuals to learn about what anti-racism is. We need to be able to do that critical race theory right now. We don't have time for individuals to learn about the importance of why ICE is scary to our newcomer students. We don't have time for them to learn about why family detention centers are okay. We need to be able to do that right now. We don't have time to be figuring out how to make sure that our campuses are safe for our LGBT students. We need to have trustees that can do that right now. And they need to be able to do that while they are fixing our budget, while they are looking at social and emotional learning. All these things need to be held right now. I am a product of West Contra Costa Unified School District, not just of the district, but I'm a product of one of the most legendary leadership teachers that this district has seen. My students will tell you they fall from the Marilyn O'Brien School of Leadership. I'm proud to be endorsed by Marilyn O'Brien and other teachers such as Janet Smith and Edwina Elsie. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Democratic Party of California and the Democratic Party of Contra Costa. And anyone around this nation who has experienced my leadership that I learned at El Cerrito High School has endorsed me. I've been endorsed by Mayor London Bree from San Francisco. I've been endorsed by Mayor Robert Garcia from Long Beach. I've been endorsed by Richmond City Council Member Demlis Johnson, Richmond City Council Member J.L. Myrick, El Cerrito City Council Member Gabe Quinto. I've been endorsed by Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, and the list goes on and on across this nation who have experienced the wonderful leadership that I learned at El Cerrito High School and that I will bring to West Contra Costa Unified School District. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all three of our candidates, Tom Panis, Leslie Reckler, and Carolyn Weisinger. Thank you very much for spending the afternoon with us and sharing your philosophy and ideas for education.